Hello and welcome. My name is Art Jones. I'm the founder of The Art of Standing Out, where we believe to lead is human, and when we accept the responsibility to lead and commit to doing the work of a leader, we will accomplish more. We created the Story Cafe as a space to have conversations with leaders, conversations where we explore how once you commit to nurturing human skills like integrity, empathy, intuition, listening, communications, all manner of positive business outcomes begin to move in your favor. Today's guest is Rebecca Hogan. You'll hear how she treats her life brand like a daily practice, assuring each day she lives up to the leadership standards she set for herself. Treating her adherence to her life brand strategy, her MarkahVida, the same way you might treat journaling every day, meditating, exercising, eating well. Her commitment to each day's recommitment to how she wants to consistently show up in the world helps her accomplish more in her business and her personal life. So pull up a comfy chair, grab a favorite beverage, and lean into this insightful conversation with Rebecca about living MarkahVida. So let's get started. So Rebecca, it's just amazing that we've had this opportunity to talk for a while, but you know what we really want to get to is that one thing that fascinates me about your just being so purposeful and so intentional, and even to the name brand that you own, MarkahVida. Can you tell us about MarkahVida, what it means to you, and give us a definition for that interesting term, MarkahVida? What does that mean?
So, Art, thanks for having me here today. I am passionate about talking about this. As I was telling you, Marka is loosely translated in multiple different languages to mean brand, and Vida translates to life. And so the concept of MarkahVida is your life brand. It's the concept that I can wake up and choose every day to live my unique individual brand.
That's powerful. If we don't live our brand, then we leave the door open for other people to tell our story for us, as opposed to our telling the story of our brand and what we believe. And if MarkahVida, what an important way of thinking about brand. I've never heard it quite articulated that way. Life brand. It suggests that you basically lean into being more who you already are.
Yes. Yes. So I've told a story a million times about whenever I realized that I had been living the first 20 years of my career for what everybody else expected, doing what was expected of me, doing what the normal was, and kind of not following my own dreams or my own passion. And I realized that I'm not the only person that wakes up at 40 and goes, where did half of my life go? Yeah. This is a common thing that happens where we get caught up in what we think is expected of us, and we don't lean into who we are, what our passion is. And so it's really this concept of being intentional to who we are, what our brand is, what our passion is, living life to its fullest, right? Because whenever we show up with that passion, it inspires other people around us. And it's being true to who we are.
One of the things that I really enjoy about the Story Cafe, it's talking to leaders like yourself, and the conversation always turns to leadership, right? And when you talk about MarkahVida, life brand, to me it sounds like integrity. It sounds like the North Star that guides you, and you just said it as well. I think when I think North Star, it means that when I show up wherever I show up, I'm unwavering. I'm not this way one day and that way another day, so people can't really get a beat on how I'm going to respond. They know I'm going to always respond with integrity. I'm always going to be humble. I'm always going to be honest. Those are things that are baked into the brand called you. And if I had to think about what the first and most foundational principle of leadership is, it is integrity. So MarkahVida and the intentionality to be more of who you are, to nurture the values that you know will help you be more you,
make you unique out of 7.5 billion people on the planet. Like your thumbprint, there's only one you. But we don't know that until you stand in your own authority.
Right.
You can't stand in Brene Brown's authority or Simon Sinek's authority and say what they say and still have your own identity. And if I understand correctly, you're saying that owning the brand called you is essentially saying, I am somebody. I have value to offer the world.
Yeah.
And in my uniqueness, here it is. And here's what I'm going to do with it. Here's how I'm going to apply it. And I'm going to be unwavering about it. And that stick-to-itiveness, that commitment, that acceptance of the responsibility to lead with integrity, you can't beat it. I mean, that really kind of is the shortest pathway to success, I think. And speaking of success, is MarkahVida something that you find impacts just you and the way you think about your brand, or does it impact? I know you're a serial entrepreneur. You have many businesses. This is a philosophy that you've embraced for you. Does it impact the employees that you have or the customers you serve and the way they perceive you as a leader?
Absolutely, 100%. When I think most of us have probably all had one of those bosses. I'm not going to say leader, I'm going to say bosses or managers that were inconsistent in how they showed up every day. And depending on what was going on in their life, one day they showed up in a great mood on cloud nine, and then the next day you didn't know what you were going to get. And that creates a sense of anxiety in a workplace, right? And whenever you are true to your brand, whenever you are true to your personal integrity of who you are, and you show up the same way every day, and you choose to show up that way every day, you create a consistency. You create something that people can depend on. They know how you're going to show up. They know what the response is that they're going to get. They know the support level that they're going to get. And just like a smile, right? Whenever someone smiles or someone sneezes, it's contagious. Same thing whenever you show up with your passion to your brand, it's contagious. It doesn't mean that people take on my brand, but it's not my brand that's contagious. It's my commitment and my integrity to my brand. It's my passion to my brand that shows up in a positive way that then affects my relationships with those that I'm working with my customers, with my employees, with my team. And it's that consistency and that integrity that just shines through in all of the relationships, and it builds on everything.
That's beautiful. As you were saying that, I was thinking that sounds like emotional intelligence, but what part of emotional intelligence would that be? And it sounds like it's really a deep commitment to self-awareness, knowing the strength that you can embody when you dependably show up the same every day. And that takes being in touch with that North Star concept, that this is what guides me. I'm unwavering and heading in this direction. I always do these things, so when you see me, you'll know how to engage with me. And I think that that's contagious as well, because we always look up to the leaders that we follow. And leaders that lead with the notion that I have 9 votes, you have 1, just do what I say, are different than the leader you're describing that is leading with integrity and is demonstrating the kind of leadership that we can all aspire to become in our own MarkahVida, in our own brand life. We too can nurture our integrity, discover our North Star, and follow it and be unwavering. And then people will look to us too for that consistency and dependability. So MarkahVida is really a not just an excellent concept or idea. It sounds like a really positive practice for all of us to think about, becoming more the brand we already are, not trying to be someone else that has an influencer that we want to be a brand like them, because we can never be them. We have to be more who we already are. And, when we were in the green room, I mentioned the notion that there's an old saying that I think it's an old Swedish saying for those people that are trying to be Grant Cardone or Gary Vaynerchuk, because they know that what they say resonates with people in an audience. They want to have that same resonance with what they say. Eventually you realize that people will sniff you out because we know there's one Gary Vaynerchuk and that's not you.
Right.
So you sound more like a parrot or a minor bird.
Right.
And when we come to that unfortunate realization, that's when the old Swedish saying comes into play, which is too soon old and too late smart. The benefit of hearing this and sharing this idea of MarkahVida now with an audience that's listening, they can avoid that too soon old, too late smart and begin leaning into who they are and nurturing that North Star to show up with integrity, intentionality. And I think intentionality is so important because when you move in an intentional way, it's kind of like the universe moves too, because they know that you're putting effort into that. And that's a good thing. And intentionality, passion, living more like the brand that you already are and working at it. Because I guess it is requiring work. It's not just because we are individuals, we can't just magically wake up. We have to work at it. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a daily practice. It's a daily practice that you have to remind yourself, what is my brand? And you have to choose to show up that way. And whenever we all get unexpected things that, sideswipe us and, and we have to deal with the stresses of life, right?
Yeah.
And the more aware that we are and the more that we practice living our purpose, our brand, the more we do that, the easier it is to respond rather than react. It helps us to be more consistent in that brand. The more we do it, the more consistent we get. It's, practice makes perfect, right?
Yeah. It's, I mean, when you think of it as a daily practice, we know that journaling or meditation and exercise and eating well, we all try to incorporate those things in our daily practice. But when we think of MarkahVida, brand life, and being intentional about the brand that we aspire to nurture, to become more of who we already are, and leverage our strengths. When you hack that, for lack of a better word, in your daily practice, is it in the journaling? Is it in having a quote on your bathroom mirror that inspires you to remember to always adhere to MarkahVida so I can lean into being more of the amazing brand that I'm building for myself? How do you do that?
Fabulous question. I mean, it's in all of those. It can be, because we all have certain techniques that work better for us, right? We've all found something that might be easier for us to adapt, that just feels more natural for us. Again, honoring your own life brand, right? Choose the tool that works for you. For me, visualization is huge. In my studies of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, I know that our unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between reality and make-believe. So if I'm visualizing my brand, how I want to show up, how I want to interact with people, if I'm visualizing that through my own eyes as I want to see it, I'm going to get those better results. And so that's how I do it.
How do you know what about you that you want to bring forward and not get that confused with the influencer that you read their Instagram stories every day? And how do you assure that you stay in your lane and nurture your power as opposed to ascribe somebody else's power and overlay it on yourself?
So I think it's what's natural, right? What comes to us, what speaks to us, what feels right. Because it's not to say that something that they say, that the message, some of the message might be the same. We just don't have to mimic how we're delivering it. We don't have to use the same language around it. It doesn't have to be verbatim the same message, but a lot of us have a lot of the same ideas. There's schools of thought, and it's honoring those people's methods, their thoughts, and then being true to ourselves. Who am I, and what does that sound like out of my mouth? What does that look like in my day? What does that sound like to the audience I want to speak to? And I heard this great phrase once called borrowing and bending, right?
Huh.
And I mean, I always say, if I thought of it, I promise you someone else is already working on it.
Yeah.
We are all amazing creators in our minds. And so to think that I have a unique thought, I'm the only person with this approach, I mean, it's just not realistic in my mind. I'm not the only person that has this concept. It's just, how do I show it? How does it show up through me? How do I deliver the message that is true to me? And we all have our different ways. We have some people are just full of energy and they're out there and you're like, whoa, they're an energy bomb. And then you have some people that are very sophisticated, I mean, almost to the point of regal in their delivery of something. And then you have people throwing out the F-bombs, right? And we're all speaking to different people.
Yeah.
And I mean, I always say, people hear what they want to hear when they want to hear it. And I'm going to go a step further and say, people hear what they want to hear when they're ready to hear it from who they're ready to hear it from.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we can say the same thing as someone else, because the thought might not be brand new, but if it resonates to who we are, to what our brand is, we just need to be authentic to ourselves and how we're presenting it to the rest of the world.
I think that's powerful. And I think you started by saying, don't mimic what other people are saying. And I think when I realized how to process somebody else's great idea and make it my own, I thought about, let's use storytelling, which is kind of one of my favorite subjects. I realized that Plato was the first person in recorded history to say, those who tell the stories rule society. That was 2,500 years ago.
Right.
Fast forward, the Hopi Indians, in their history, the oral tradition, they said the same thing. And if you go back 40,000 years, the shamans that were painting with charcoal in caves were telling a visual story, and they were changing the lives of the tribes that they were serving too. So story and the shamans, or Plato or the Hopi, saying that those who tell the most compelling stories can rule,
Right,
has been true. When I internalize that and process it in the way I think about the world and the audience that I'm in service to, then when I say something similar, I'm not mimicking. I've processed, internalized, and now I've made it my own unique conveyance. It comes from me, but through me, because I got it from Plato and the Hopi and the cave paintings in Chauvet, France. And processing it all together, when I say it, it comes out my way. And I think that is not mimicking. That's taking possession of it and owning it. And that becomes the brand called me and my way of articulating it. And I think that even when I went through that evolutionary process, that was hard because we have this imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
The notion that, well, if Plato said it, how, when I say it, is it going to sound anywhere near as regal or as important? Well, make it your own, because there's only one you, like that fingerprint. There's only one of us, but you have to process it. You can't mimic it and just repeat it. You have to think about it, internalize it, and really make it your own.
And I mean, just to throw a very generic metaphor around that. I mean, if people just stopped and said, because this person said it, nobody else should say it, I shouldn't say it, because if people stopped, I mean, look at the iPhone, right? Look at the Samsung, I mean, there's all these other technologies, there's all of these other versions. But if the world stopped, if people just stopped and said, well, that person said it, or that person's already doing it, and we never build on it, then we're going to reach a much smaller group of people. It's not going to have the effect on history and changing society, right?
Yeah.
And so we all have to embrace what resonates with us and truly live it and share it as it resonates through, as you said, our own filters, how we internalize it, because it's going to come out different for you than it comes out for me. It's going to be delivered different because we all internalize and filter things differently. And so we need to step into our own power and just really believe in and trust ourselves to say it the way we hear it in our brain, right? The way we hear it, and just share it. It's going to resonate with somebody.
Yeah.
And even if it's one person, and I say something that resonates with one person, it was worth the energy. It was worth sharing it, because that person might share it with another person, and that person might share it with another person. Or it just changes how we interact, and they walk away with a more positive internalization of that interaction, and then they then have a more positive interaction with someone else, and it's that ripple effect.
Yeah.
And so we can't hide and limit ourselves because somebody else might be saying a similar message.
That's very powerful. And I know in another conversation that we had, you talked about each of us has the opportunity to be a creator. And that's really what you're saying.
Yeah.
And in creation in 2021, since we've been keeping time, it's a long time, a couple of millennia that we have recorded history. And then prior to that, there's millennia that go way, way back. I mean, the cave paintings in Chauvet, France, I thought were the oldest, at 40,000 years old, radiocarbon dating. There's recently some in Indonesia that are 10,000 years older. So we've been telling stories, and those stories have been told over and over and over and over. I mean, the notion that Gilgamesh, one of the oldest stories, is not terribly different than Star Wars, and the story arc is the same. So if you're looking for originality, good luck, because we've been the species, and we've been innovating, creating and innovating, and more innovation, because I think of firecrackers in China a long time ago, and then steam engines, and then the Wright brothers on a first flight, and now there's a helicopter flying on Mars. It had to get there. That firecracker and that steam engine are part and party of the innovations that enabled us to get there today. So if you think that your idea is not valid, just innovate, make it your own, and that's what innovation is. Add something special to it. You talk about visualizing an NLP, perhaps in a way that other people wouldn't. And when your tribe shows up, it resonates with them, and they say, well, I really need Coach Rebecca to tell me more about that, because it sounds like that can help me.
We all have ideas. And I think that, there's so many times that people are afraid to step out and create their own ideas because they think that they need to be that specific person, or they need to follow this path. And I think that everybody is a creator. We're all creators in how we communicate with people, how we inspire people, how we inspire ourselves. We're communicators we're creators within ourselves, right?
Wow. Yeah. That's you just nailed something that's so important, and that really is the genesis of the conversation. MarkahVida, your life brand, is a conversation you have with yourself about who you are and what you stand for.
Yeah.
Where your integrity springs from. So that was beautiful how you segued into that. And being an NLP practitioner, I know you have a power with words, and I think you've nailed it on so many different levels. You know, I'm fascinated with MarkahVida. It's really generated some interesting dialogue, and I know for the audience that's listening, there's some great tips. Recognizing the power that you already have and letting that light shine. That's incredible advice. I know if anybody needs an assist with that, in the show notes, they'll have a link to find you. Thanks for coming on to the show. This has been an amazing conversation. I know there's more that you have to share, and I hope you'll come back and we can talk more about it.
Oh, absolutely. It was my pleasure being here. It's always stimulating to be able to have conversations with you. Truly enjoy it. And I enjoy the opportunity to be able to just talk about what I'm passionate about, right? I'm passionate about helping other people live their true brand and live their life passionately.
Well, thanks for coming on board to talk about MarkahVida, life brand. We're all here for that, and we all need more of that. So thank you once again, and we'll, until next time, goodbye, everyone.
Bye. However, it's difficult to allow yourself that focus, that freedom to focus on you when you're, as an entrepreneur, as a leader, whenever the other stuff isn't working, because you feel such an obligation to that. And sometimes people are putting so much energy into fixing their business and doing all of those things, and they're not doing it authentically, right? And so if you can help them with the people problem, which the biggest problem that anyone has in business is their people problem. And so that is the right people in the right seats and being an effective leader. Those are the two keys to it. And so how can I show up and be an effective leader if I have imposter syndrome, if I don't believe in myself, if I have self-doubt all the time, if I'm not being authentic to myself? So in order to solve that, you kind of need to come at it from both places. And then whenever I honor who I am, being authentic to me, believing in my self-worth, whenever I honor all of that, then I allow myself the opportunity to be there in all the other areas of my life and all of the other relationships. But first, you have to be honest and true with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to have the right people in the right seats so that you feel the freedom to let go of that a little so that you can focus on you. And so that's how
the leader sets the tone for the organization. And when the leader gets their MarkahVida alignment and aligned in harmony with themselves, who they really are, and they're standing in the power of their life brand, then the organization, kind of like a chiropractor, gets kind of tilted into more proper alignment. Then the tweaks after that are people in the right seats. But if you don't get the leadership alignment right, everything else you do after that is not going to give you the optimal outcome that you seek.
Well, and if you're showing up as being authentic to you, being integral to your authentic self, if you're showing up as a leader that way, you're going to attract the right people into the right seats. You're going to be able to get people to be engaged, to want to follow what you're trying to achieve. But when you're showing up stressed out, overworked, feeling like the victim because nothing's going right, and I put in 16 hours a day and I can't pay all these bills, and I'm an employment agency and I'm a nonprofit. When you're showing up like that, people are there for their paycheck, and that is it.
Yeah. And it's with employee engagement being down, with employee experience and corporate culture being the reason employee engagement is down. That all starts with leadership and the culture they establish. And when you start with building that, when you start as being and nurturing your own leadership sensibility, your own leadership integrity, then the culture you build will be a reflection of that integrity. And that's corporate culture that nurtures employee experience, and you gain employee engagement. And that's employment branding. People will want to work for you because of that culture. But absent having that baked into who you are as a leader, you can't get there from here. And always powerful. This is part 2 of the conversation I didn't know we were going to have.
Yeah.
This is the added value bonus time with Rebecca talking about MarkahVida. So I know you're busy. I'm gonna let you go now, before we pick another subject and you give us some more words of wisdom that I know we would value, but we'll save that until next time.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Rebecca. Bye
All right.
again.